Welcome back, RCM professionals. Okay, today we're doing a masterclass explainer on two notoriously complex denial codes, CO151 and CO558. Now, if you're a denial resolution analyst or a billing supervisor, you already know these codes can absolutely bottleneck your AR if they aren't handled with total precision. So we're going to treat this like a real-world clinical coding lab. Here's the game plan for today. We'll start by deconstructing CO151, run through some real-world utilization case studies, then pivot to decode CO5 and 58, and finally, look at how to correct those tricky place-of-service mismatches. All right, part 1, deconstructing CO151, frequency and utilization edits. So CO151, this one is a direct hit to your revenue stream when payers decide to challenge the frequency of your billed services. By definition, it hits your queue when the payer's system flags your units as just excessive. The code literally means the payment was adjusted because the payer deems the submitted info doesn't support the frequency of services. It's essentially the payer's system raising its hand and saying, wait a minute, this looks like too much. It forces us to dive straight into the clinical documentation to justify exactly why the patient needed this specific volume of care. Now, the crucial first step is identifying the exact operational trigger. Like, why did the system flag it in the first place? Well, often it's because you're exceeding a hard medically unlikely edit, or MUE limit, set by CMS for a single day. Other times, it's payer-specific frequency caps. Think of a strict limit on physical therapy visits in a given month, for example. You might also be dealing with overlapping service dates, cumulative time limits that accidentally overlap on the claim, or honestly, just a simple lack of documented medical necessity to back up that frequency. To algorithmically narrow down the exact why behind a CO151, we have to look at the RAR crosswalk. When that CO151 drops, it usually brings a remittance advice remark code along with it. CN435? That tells you there's just no supporting documentation for the frequency. N640, on the other hand, is a hard stop. You literally just exceeded the allowed number for that time period. And M25, that points directly to a lack of clinical substantiation. Decoding these RARCs, that is your very first step to building a solid defense. Which brings us to the action flow. Listen, always, and I mean always, check your MUE threshold first to see if the base allowable units were paid before you decide your next move. If those base units were paid, you need to audit the documentation for the excess units. If you can't support them, route them for a contractual adjustment. But if the base units were completely denied, you've got to cross-reference your LCDs and NCDs, correct the billing units or intervals, and refile that claim. Moving on to part 2, resolving utilization case studies. Let's take this from theory to application. Because, theory is great, but application is where we actually recover the cash, right? To put our framework to the test, let's ask a highly practical question. How exactly should a billing analyst handle a claim where chronic care management, CCM, limits are flagged within a single calendar month? Let's look at this first case study. We've got CPT code 99490 billed out for $161. The denial comes back as a CO151 with that M25 remark code we just talked about. Well, when we dig into the account inquiry, the root cause becomes super obvious. CPT 99490 was already paid earlier in that exact same calendar month. And as we know, per CBT guidelines, the initial CCM 99490 is billable only once per calendar month. So, because the guideline strictly prohibits a second initial CCM billing in the same month, there's really no appeal to be won here. Your precise corrective action? Recognize the duplicate, clean up the account, and route that excess line straight for contractual adjustment approval. Sometimes it's just about working smarter and knowing when a hard limit has been rightfully hit. Okay, scenario 2. We have a high-level new patient EM visit, CPT 99205, billed at $524, and boom, denied under CO151. Why? Well, a quick historical account inquiry proves the patient was actually seen by the exact same specialty within the previous 3 years, so by definition, they are not a new patient. That makes the frequency of a new patient code totally invalid. The algorithmic directive here is simple but highly effective. You audit the record to confirm the level of medical decision-making, recode the encounter from the new patient 99205 over to an established patient high-level visit, like CPT 99215, and refile the corrected claim. Boom. You save the revenue, you just had to map it to the correct patient status. All right, part 3, decoding CO5 and 58, place of service inconsistencies. While CO151 is all about volume, CO5 and 58, they are all about location. Both of these denial codes indicate a fundamental mismatch on the claim itself. Basically, the payer is telling you, hey, the procedure code you provided completely contradicts the physical setting where you said it was performed. I mean, you can't exactly perform an inpatient-only open-heart surgery in a podiatrist's private office, right? Now, these denials almost always stem from front-end data entry errors. The most common triggers, simple things like accidentally swapping a two-digit place of service or POS code, or maybe using codes that are strictly limited to an ambulatory surgical center, but billing them under an office setting. This creates major facility versus non-facility reimbursement split errors, and payers will automatically reject those. Matching your CO5 to RMRs like M77 or N535 is what dictates whether you're dealing with a simple typo or a severe coverage policy violation. For instance, M97, that means the payment is already bundled into the facility reimbursement, so the practitioner can't bill it separately. N428 means it is flat out not covered in that setting. Knowing these nuances is going to speed up your resolution time immensely. Which brings us to part 4, correcting POS mismatches. Let's look at the action flow and case resolution. Let's map out the exact workflow you need to clear these mismatches from your AR and get those claims paid. Your workflow should always start by checking the POS compatibility table. Look at the CPT code definition alongside the facility setting. Now, if it actually aligns and the payer just made a mistake, push the claim back for reprocessing. But if it fails that compatibility check, you've got to dive into the clinical record, verify the actual encounter location, update that two-digit POS code, and refile. Let's look at our final scenario. Here, we have an established EN visit billed out at $420. But check out the claim POS. It says POS 31, which is a skilled nursing facility. Unsurprisingly, this triggered an immediate, full M77 denial for an inappropriate place of service. And here is the exact data entry flaw. The claim dropped with POS 31, the SNF indicator. But when our analyst audited the actual clinical record, the notes proved the encounter actually happened in the provider's private office, which is POS 11. It's a simple yet incredibly costly keystroke error. So to secure that $420 reimbursement, the denial resolution analyst simply corrects that two-digit code in the billing system, swapping POS 31 for POS 11, and refiles a clean claim. By following a structured flow, what looked like a hard denial is easily overturned. As we wrap up these workflows, I want to emphasize a crucial point derived straight from our training materials. Remember, continuous education and tight collaboration with your providers are absolutely your strongest defenses against these completely preventable front-end data entry errors. Good documentation stops both utilization and place of service denials before they ever even happen. I'm going to leave you with this final audit question to take back to your teams. Are your system scrubbers actually updated to catch these MUE thresholds and POS incompatibilities before the claim ever drops? Because proactive defense is always the best RCM strategy. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Decode Healthcare with Harshal.